Hi, this video is about writing C++ code and then creating a DLL and then using that DLL in Visual Basic.net. I had a lot of problems getting this to work, but I had code that was I need to execute very fast, so I wrote it in C++. And rather than having to learn how to write Windows forms in C++, I just wanted to be able to create a DLL from C and import it into Visual Basic. Turns out there was a lot of problems with this. Windows uses different variable types and sizes than C does. So it created a lot of problems, but I did write this little test program that gets it right. Basically, I just made a function that doubles whatever number is passed to it. So this program here takes whatever number I type into this box. When I run the function, it outputs the answer to this box. So if I put in 15, it returns a 30. And like I said, this was just a test, but it gives us it does show what steps you need to be able to do to get this to work. So first off, on writing the DLL, let's start with, you need a header file. And first of all, I did open this file as a lot of websites will say, open it using the Win32 app, which then imports a whole bunch of files and things like that. I did do this as create an empty file, empty project, and then just added in the parts that I needed. So let's start. You're going to need to have a header file. And inside here, you're going to need to add in just this code here. Basically, this says if your project defines exporting DLL, that you're going to use that you're going to be exporting the DLL. If your project doesn't define this exporting DLL, then it's going to be importing it. And you're going to need to have this in your header. Now, in your main, you're going to have to define that exporting DLL. And you need to have this declared before you actually call the header file. That way there, when it gets to the header file, it knows which one to invoke, either the import or export. I also include Windows H. That is because you need to be able to call this function here, which you just need to be able to copy exactly. And that will create what's called the entry point for your DLL. So Windows knows where to start running code. And then down here, I just wrote a simple function called hello world, which returns an integer, takes an integer, and I just return 2 times what the integer is. One last thing you need is a what's called a definition file, because C++ allows you to do function overloading, which allows you to have multiple functions with the same name as long as they take different parameters. What happens when it creates the DLL, it does what Microsoft calls mangling the name. It adds characters to the name of the function so that it can differentiate between them. So you need to write a definition file. In here, you just need to say library with the name of the library and exports in the name of your function. It doesn't have to list any parameters or anything. And you need to have that in Well, you're gonna, let's see, actually, let's go, DLL test. You need to have that in, I believe it is the release folder. Yeah, I believe it's the release folder for it to work. And there is a program that you can run from the control dump bin. Let's see. Let's go change directory desktop /C++ /DLL test. Change directory. Release. Oops. Mouse problems here. Change directories, release. And we can go dump bin, and it's called DLL test. Oh, we need to use /exports export. What's the name of the file? DLL test.dll. Type file. Oh, it didn't give me the X. Let me try it with exports. Yeah. Now, here's an example where it mangled the name. But using that hello world in the definition file, it'll clean it up for you. Now, you do need to change some settings in your project to get it to work. So in your under project and properties, you're going to need to tell the linker, you can expand that linker, and on input, change module definition file, and you're going to need to add that def file that you created. And under general, you're going to need to change the configuration type from exe to DLL. Now, I'm doing and I've been working on this for a couple of days, so it seemed to me that I had to change 3 things in there, but I looked through them, I can only find those 2. So maybe that was it, but just keep an eye out in case there was another one. So that was it for the DLL. Once you create it, I copied it over to the to a project for the for Visual Basic. Now, outside of any class or anything, you need to put in this line: imports system.runtime.interop services. And then you need to define your function, and I did this just inside the form. DLL import, in double quotes, the name of the DLL, calling convention equals calling convention dot C DLL, and then give a definition for the function. And this is all on one line. You can't really see it here, but there is a multi-line operator there, and then a private shared function. Define the function. It has by val in there, but I'm not sure if that's needed or not. But in this example, both of the passing argument and the return value are defined as int32. If you noticed over in the original function, they were defined as integers. And then from there on out, you can just call the function just as you would. I did notice that taking the value from the text box, I did have to convert it to an integer, so it wouldn't take it just as a string. And so that worked. Just a heads up on something that's not shown here. I know that C and Visual Basic handle strings differently. In native C, strings are handled as arrays of characters. And it basically, there's initially one number that points to the beginning of the array. And to treat it as a string, C starts at that point. Excuse me, and goes until it finds a null character, and that's treated as the end of the string. So you could basically define it as being 80 characters long, but if at character 20 it finds the null character, it will say, okay, that's where the array, or that's where we're ending. Windows, or Basic, on the other hand, holds two values for the string. One is the pointing to the beginning, and the second one is how long the string is. So they're handled differently between the two. I am not sure if you use, because that array of characters is native C. C++ has the strings object. I'm not sure how those are handled enough to be able to talk about it, but there are things just to bear in mind. So there you go. That's how to get it to a C++ DLL to work in your in your Visual Basic. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.